Okay, it is 6:02, and we will call the meeting of the East Bridgewater Finance Committee to order. Our chair, Laura Sebastian, had a conflict tonight, so I'll be chairing the meeting. And with that, we will get started. Tonight, we're here to go over several departments' budget presentations, the initial pass at them. So we'll welcome Sue Gilpatrick to present your budget. Yeah, come on up. I'm not sure if everyone in the packet, I think only the assessor's budget was in there. I'm not sure if we emailed them out, but they came out a little bit later.
Did you pick up your packages in the mailbox downstairs?
I did, but it's only.
It should be double-sided.
Or is it?
The assessors got replaced.
Right. This, I think she only printed the management report for us.
I will go get them.
Okay.
Is there like a screen you put on the screen?
I don't think we're that sophisticated
Yeah,
tonight. I have one copy. We'll just take a. We'll hold tight for a second, sorry.
Cookies.
Town clerk. 160.
Unless there was anything simple.
Thank you.
No,
Put
these
it
are-
away for the season.
Take the,
I won't lie. I
minutes
was
out of
gonna say,
order.
Oh, yeah, we can do that. While we're waiting, Kevin suggested we take the, move on to the next agenda item, which would be to vote on any available minutes that we just handed out. So if everyone wants to take a second to, if you haven't had a chance to look those over, and then when you're ready, we'll entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve the minutes of the meeting of December 10th as printed.
Second.
Moved by Kevin, second by Dave.
I'm gonna abstain because I wasn't here.
Okay. Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And Crystal abstains.
You're on your own now. Got nothing.
No, but you're. Now we're incumbent time.
Like your shirt, too.
Thank you.
These lemonade ones and the s'mores.
Second.
Oh, no.
I haven't got that one yet, so I'm eating them all.
Who picked their own car next to the police station? Crazy, crazy person.
Rebecca's making another settlement. She swears up and down she gave them to us, so.
I just double checked. I mean, it looked like we had the assessor management.
Weird.
And then there was assessor management.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know. I'm interested. Do you just want to maybe start talking through and?
Sure, I mean, I could do the Board of Registrar's budget first, because that's pretty,
Pretty easy.
yeah,
Okay.
there's only 2 items on it, really.
Okay.
Okay, so the Board of Registrars, the personal services, which is the salaries, everyone on the board gets a $500 stipend per year. That hasn't gone up, doesn't go up, so that's just a straight $2,000. And for the expenses, I budgeted at 42, 55, 24. And basically, expenses for the Board of Registrar is our annual town census, which this year is going to cost about $3,900. The additional money we use for that, we use to publish the street listing for the printing of that, and then any supplies we need for Board of Registrars, which we do have to do mailings for voters when someone moves out of town. So it's for envelopes for the Board of Registrars.
Is
And-
that basically the same as last year?
It's basically the same, I just upped it 2%, and then anything that, we've always spent that, it's always, and then anything additional that I have to pay for Board of Registrars comes out of the town clerk's budget.
And did you change companies last year for the town census?
I
that work
did,
out?
this year I went, I did not go back to LHS, I wasn't very happy with their service last year, and I've gone to Mass Mailers out of Brockton, so it's, and LHS is out of New Hampshire, so this is keeping it a
okay.
little more local. And price-wise, it was about the same.
Okay.
And Ellen was very easy to work with, you know, she, give her a call, she comes right in, and it was a smooth transition as far as going from LHS to their company, and the customer service was fabulous.
Okay. Here we go, right? Oh, jeez. You looked so proud walking in with those.
I'm crushed. She's making whole new sets, but I'm gonna go just walk down the hall and just do the treasurer, the town clerk's budget.
Okay, we'll wait one more
That's
minute.
through the moment. Yeah, okay, give me a second.
You want a cookie? Does he do it? He's gonna get iced tea. So him walking in with his, that's what I meant to do.
I pulled up to pay. Alright, just do
It's making for exciting viewing at home.
Yeah.
I'll be like, I'm still awake.
So I wish I could have that energy tonight.
Here we go.
Jeopardy
Building
music.
up right now.
Some kind of awkward silence.
I know.
Joe, thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. And thanks for that hustle.
We'll see if we can get the others in time.
Okay.
Okay, so for my budget, for the town clerk salaries, it is a little bit more than the 2% that normally we do. After speaking with Brian, he had said he thought the town clerk's salary should be more comparable with the treasurer collector salary. And at the time, her salary was 75. So I pushed mine up a little bit, getting closer to the, you know, to get that gap a little closer. As far as the next one down, the assistant, that salary had been a little on the high side, but I figured in Michelle's, the assistant town clerk, her step, and then also something we hadn't had figured in our budget was paying overtime for any time we have to work the elections. In the past, we were just given comp time in the department, and I found out that we can't tell them they have to take comp time. If they want the money, you know, we have to pay them the overtime. So anything over their 35, up from the 35 to 40 hours obviously would be straight time, and anything over 40 would be a time and a half. I do have 3 elections next year, the September primary, then the presidential election, and then the annual town election. So that salary encompasses all of that for her, and then, because it ended up to be about 15 hours at overtime. Oh, I should have had that one pulled out.
Can't they just work like less hours on another project?
Not really.
What?
That'd be comp time.
No, it'd be flexible scheduling,
Oh,
wouldn't it?
yeah, no, we don't do flexible. We're not flexible. We have a collective bargaining
Yeah, they're-
agreement, so you're not allowed to be flexible.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah, they're contractually, they have 35 hours a week per their contract.
Hmm.
So it turned out to be about 15 hours at the regular rate and 14 hours at the overtime rate. And that took care of all three of the elections. But that's now encompassed in their salary line. And that's the same thing for the clerical salaries.
So you were starting off at a higher step on the 2020, if I'm remembering correctly, right?
Yes.
As to the
That-
admin.
Yeah, that's why the.
So you're sort of balancing out when all is said and done?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sick leave buyback, that figure's been in there for a while. I don't know that any of the girls will be eligible for it yet, so chances are that money is just gonna, roll back to the general fund. And same thing with the vacation buyback. That would just be for the clerical. The stipend for Chapter 41, it's up to $500 because it's, according to the section, for the first 50 voters, $50 for the first 1,000 voters, and then it's $50 for every 1,000 voters going forward. We have just over 10,000 voters, so, and it hadn't been figured correctly last year either. So 500 is the correct amount for that, what I'm entitled to for that stipend. Then going down for town meetings, wardens, that's basically takes care of our elections, and supplies going with that. Each election generally is $6,000 to $7,000 per election. It's showing a little less because I don't have, I do get money from the state every year for, it's usually around $3,000. And that helps to offset the polling hours that were open, the state mandates that were open. It's like 3 hours in the morning and I don't think any in the afternoon, but that encompasses your police, your police department, your custodian, your poll workers. Office supplies, that's basically just our day-to-day, the special papers we use for birth certificates, the bond paper we use, envelopes, all kinds of fun stuff.
Is that up for the elections this year, or is that based on where you are for actual?
I think that's, I tried to base that on with having 3 elections.
Mhm.
So the following year, we would only have 1 election, so that should drop, well, yes, 1 election, so that would drop the following year.
Does the department track, so you had mentioned like paper for birth certificates and things like that. There's a fee to get those, right?
Yes.
Is that tracked anywhere just to show if it, like the revenue offsets any of the expense?
It's not tracked on here, but we do have it on our, I do have a ledger that, we have to turn in, I keep a monthly spreadsheet and then an annual, which all those are reported in the town. The town book there.
When you do your annual
The
report?
annual report, yes. Thank you.
When was the last time we looked at the fee structure, like what we charge?
To the best of my knowledge, it hasn't been, I've been in the department about 7 years now, and it hasn't been looked at all. I mean, I know we're comparable with a lot of the towns around, but, Brockton, they charge 25 or 26 for a birth certificate. We charge 10. But your Whitman, your West Bridgewater, your Bridgewater, they're in the 10 range.
Okay.
And so supplies, we also have our, we buy our dog tags, that's almost $1,000. So the supplies, the computer supplies, I'm hoping that the state is going to approve the e-poll books. Right now, I have 2 e-poll books that we use for town meeting, so the electronic check-in, I don't know if you've noticed the last time you've come in, much quicker on the computer. than it is flipping through all those pages. We're hoping the state's gonna approve those for elections also. So the first two cost me about $1,300 just for the software and the setup, and then it would be another probably $1,000 to $1,200 for 2 laptops to go with it. Like I said, hopefully the state's gonna approve them, and I can, add more to that, because eventually we would need 8. We'd need 4 for the check-in and 4 for the check-out. So I'm just trying to build that up. But I don't want to get too far ahead of it, because if they don't approve them, I don't want to be stuck with them. And then for dues, memberships, and conferences, the Masstown clerks have 3 conferences a year. There's one in Springfield, one in Devens, and one down in Plymouth. I try to attend them as long as it fits in my schedule and things are okay in the office will be covered. I try to attend them. The Plymouth one, I did close the office last year for 1 day, so the other 2 girls could come down and take classes for 1 day. There's a morning class and an afternoon class on Thursday, so they were able to participate in that. There's also 4 workshops a year that the Masstown Clerks groups provide, and those are like $15 a person, and they do a lot of like election, just kind of updating stuff, and it's great for new clerks, and it's also good for, my department is very young, as far as just being into the department, so I try to send them to as many workshops and training sessions as I can to get everyone up to speed, and so we're all on the same page and following the rules that we're supposed to be.
How many people are in the office?
There's 3 of us,
Great. So there's 1 admin support, 1 clerical, and yourself?
yes. And I'm there full-time.
And the other 2 as well?
Yes, they're both 35 hours.
So I have a couple of questions, because this is something I've talked about. It's been a concern of mine, and unfortunately, you're the first one, but everybody's gonna get hit with this question. This appropriation approach that we take to the budget. 2019, what the appropriation was, going to the appropriation for 2020 was a 2% increase, like the Board of Selectmen, whoever said it. But in reality, it was a 7% increase from actual spend, because there was 10,411 not spent, okay? So we're still going down the road of what's from appropriations from what was actually spent. I've seen a couple of other budgets here, similar situations. So when people in town are concerned about we're hiding money, or we're doing this, or we're doing that, so it could come out to free cash later on, this is where I struggle personally from voting on just what was appropriated versus what's really needed off of what was actually spent. So, all the budgets I've looked at so far have been underspent, yet we're still seeing the constant 2%, 2.5% increases. Should we not be taking into consideration some of these line items, and granted, this is a small budget, and like I said, unfortunately, you're the first one here, right? Where money hasn't been spent, or that amount has not been spent, and we're just not carrying the same number forward year to year.
That's a good question.
Because that's why, a lot of times at the annual town meeting, we're spending time also saying, oh, I gotta move it from this line to this line, and we have to vote, and that's not even really reflected here.
So I guess if we look at some of these, like,
Well, that's why I did take out the $1,000, the additional compensation one. That's for my certification. It would take 3 years for me to get my certification and plus coursework, so I don't know how long it's gonna take. It's definitely not happening next year. I did take that out.
So I think like a good one to look at is the like dues, memberships, and conferences, where that was underspent by $537 2 years ago, and then you increased it of even 2%. So I think what David's kind of getting at is that 2%, like your actual guess based on going through increases in conference costs and stuff like that? Or is that just a increase of?
Well, it is increasing in conference costs because I am sending, prior to me, I only got to go to maybe one conference in the 6 years I had been in the office. I'm trying to send Katie and Michelle to every conference workshop I can get them to.
Right.
Like I said, just because I said we are a young, new department, just to get them up to speed and get them educated, and, you know, every day is an education down there, but, and that's why I haven't decreased that.
And you may have gone over this and I missed it, but on the clerical salaries, we've got 5.59. Is that because of the 3-year boost that somebody takes, or?
No,
Master's salary.
it just, Katie, the salary that she's at, some of it is for the overtime, but not that much of it.
Masters?
She does have a master's, so she has an 8% boost in her salary from the grid.
That's the overtime too added in?
Yeah, and some of it is the overtime. Her overtime was.
Need a master's degree to do the job? It says it's a clerical job.
What did I do with that overtime sheet?
Is so that's part of the master's degree bump is part of the collective bargaining agreement?
Yes.
With that union?
Yes. Yeah, and her overtime is $981, almost $1,000.
And did she just obtain the master's degree this past year?
No, she's
Oh.
had it, but she's new to my department. And previous people in that slot didn't have a master's.
So we have a contract that says if you're a clerk and you get a master's degree, you get an 8% bump.
Is this for real?
For real.
I didn't negotiate that one.
Who did?
Wow.
Is it a master's degree in something that's relevant to the clerk's operation?
I don't honestly,
Doesn't have to be, is the
Yeah.
answer.
Cool.
yeah.
Good work when you can get it.
I think it's kind of, so this is the management report for the expenses and expenditures to date. The town meeting was obviously excluded because that hasn't happened yet. But if looking at the expenses, like we're halfway through the year now, but most of the expense lines are well below 50% of what was budgeted. So I think, and like this is, like he said, this is not
Yeah,
specific to
and
your
that could, well, it
department,
could have
but-
been me too also, doing the budget last year. It was the first budget I
Right.
had done, and I hadn't really been schooled in the process.
Right.
So I kind of basically went up 2% on everything because I didn't know. And last year, there was only, we'll have the presidential primary
Right.
and the town election, and those are the only two elections in that budget. So we still have 2 elections coming up, and we haven't had any yet, so, and those are the big expenses. And then I do have a conference I'm going to in February, and then a conference in May.
So there's still 2 more.
Yeah, still 2 more conferences.
Okay. So we're not actually voting on these tonight, right?
No, this is just the first pass for
First
questions.
pass. So
Yep.
as we get down the road a little bit further, we can take into consideration what are the actuals, expenses on the management report forecasted out on an annual basis to see if in fact we need to make some changes in departments that we can make some recommendations.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
It's page 6.
Any other questions for Sue?
So what would it take to raise the fees on the stuff that you do?
It would have to be voted on, town meeting.
Well, I thought the Board of Selectmen would just have to vote on it.
So that would be the way to recoup some of the increase that you're asking for.
So your request to the town clerk is to review the fees and make a presentation about fees
Yeah, I
at
can
a
take,
future meeting.
I think I'd like to see that, if they haven't been looked at in 7 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, just the neighboring towns.
yeah, I can check around the neighboring towns, find out what their fee schedules are, and
I'm just going for more,
Yeah.
pay for yourself, right? Try to.
You're not asking to make a profit, just cover.
Just cover it.
yeah, I don't know how Brockton gets away with the 25 for a piece of paper, but.
Well, people have no alternative, correct?
Hmm?
People have no alternative other than to get a birth certificate from you.
Well, there's two, you can get it in two communities. You can get it in the community the child was born in, so the hospital community, and then the community that parents were living with at the time of the birth.
Right, so there is a little competition.
Yes, there is.
And so isn't there a short form and a long form that you can do also, and some, I know some towns, I think.
Not for birth certificates, not anymore.
No?
They
Okay.
only issue and we only issue the long forms now.
Okay,
Yep. Yeah, and a lot of the cards, people don't accept them anymore.
okay,
They
that's what I
didn't
was
have-
thinking.
They don't have all the pertinent information.
Gotcha.
Now, let's be careful though, because remember, vote to raise fees. Everybody just got their tax bills.
All right, any other questions for Sue?
No, thank you, that was
No,
good.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Okay, next up on our agenda, we have the Conservation Commission.
How are you?
Look at that, right after, there we go.
And lined up, thank you, sir.
I'm good, Brian, I've got the thing
have
printed
one?
out, yeah, so.
Okay, thank you.
I'm fine. Thank you. Save a bunch of paper, maybe.
Thank you. It's gonna be like that. It is neater.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Feel free to start taking us through.
Okay, so the budget this year, for clerical, we increased it to, for contractual. So the, to the 45,000 is to meet the contractual increase.
How can that be?
8%.
Is it a new person in the role, or
What have you?
it's a 7, it's almost an 8% increase?
It went,
She's gonna, she's asking to also reclassify.
yeah, but that was, wait a minute. Unless we took it off the, I went by the clerical, the wage grid.
So they're changing the
Or-
step and also reclassifying, is that what we're?
Principal clerk,
Isn't that where it goes to the administrative, right?
no. We went 45,499.03 is July 2020 to June 2021 for step 6, principal clerk.
And what were they for 2020?
19.
42,169.
42,169,
But it was a step 6 principal clerk
yes,
in the prior fiscal year.
yes. Yes,
I don't have the chat in front of me, so I don't.
that's the chart I went by.
I don't know, I don't think any of us have seen
All right.
the,
Yeah, where's the chart? For all of these.
I'll get it for you. It's about 15 pages. No big deal. I'm not running downstairs again.
Why don't you do that?
That's the first time I've seen that chart for this year, so last year, I believe we just went with the, whatever percent we were working on.
43, it's 2,000, that's like 5%.
Also, that's for 35 hours up until recently, within the last several months, Kim had only been working, 29 to 31 hours.
Oh, okay.
So,
okay,
and I
that's
think,
the
so,
difference,
that's
okay.
it, sorry.
No, that's okay.
So, again, as I said, this was the first time I had an actual chart. Then last year, we would have taken what she had and just added on whatever the 2% or whatever the increase was, and that's where we
So
came
why
up
did
with
the,
that.
why did the hours increase?
Mainly the response, just the extra, the extra work we need her in the office to get it done. We're also working, and Brian can speak on that too, also working to see about changing the job title. This has been my thing that I've been talking about for I don't know how many years. Going from principal clerk to administrative assistant.
And I think I was the liaison for your group last year, and I believe you talked a lot about some of the laws that had changed. In particular, I think this MS4
The MS4 change, so that's.
put a lot more responsibility
A
on.
lot more, correct, yeah. That just,
But that's zero for this, coming up this year.
right, and I'll explain that at the next,
So in that 7.9%, basically, we're talking about,
bringing her to 35 hours at the step,
so you've got
At her-
you've got a 2% plus a change in hours is essentially what
Yes.
we're talking about, or at the same
and
step.
it's something that we've talked about over the years, and I know majority, you are new, but over the years, we've talked about the job has changed from year to year, and we talked eventually, we knew it would be needed to go full-time, the full 35 hours. Actually, we've picked up the extra time mainly on Fridays. Kim has been working Fridays. We needed her in the office to answer questions, to review plans with the, not abutters, the application, for the applications, things like that, just go over all that. And then when we've issued a permit, then they come in to pick up the permits, and she reviews the plans and what's needed to be done with the special conditions.
So her, sorry.
In the expense side, there's some significant increases from prior years.
So, under professional services, we took the line item that we had for MS4, and I put it into the engineering, our professional services line. Mainly,
Okay, you took it from there to
I
there.
took it from
okay.
there and put it in there.
Okay.
We've had, with engineering increase is due to the MS4 investigation and enforcement line item, I moved it in.
Right,
We increased John Delano, who's our consulting engineer, 6 hours a month. So he comes in for 3 hours every other Friday, so he's there the Fridays after our scheduled meetings, and we meet twice a
so
month.
is John Delano gonna be available to you this year? Because I understand in the building department, he works with them a bit, and
He's not, he ended his contract with them. He
Okay.
still is with
Still
the
with you?
commission. Yeah.
Okay.
So we added him 6 hours to review MS4, wetland applications prior to them filing. We've met up with a lot of builders and engineers coming in to discuss a lot of the MS4, what we're looking for to help streamline the whole process, permitting process. So, and then to answer any questions and to finalize our orders of conditions and our final permits. So having him physically in the office for those 2 days.
Okay. I was just concerned if he wasn't gonna be available, your cost could be a little bit higher.
If we had to get somebody else, yeah, definitely. But no, he is still continuing with us. So instead of adding on, we figured, figured we would roll our MS4 line item into that to cover those expenses. Then office supplies.
Other charges and expenses increased $1,000.
That went up $1,000 because, went up, yep. The $600 that's generally in there is for the commission members and our dues at MAC, which is Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissioners. And that covers the dues for all the 7 members. The additional $1,000 is because we're having our Kim Eldridge, our principal clerk, start taking classes through MAC for different, she's going to be doing a little bit more being out in the field. A lot of times before a project can really get moving, they have to certify and have inspected their silt fence, their drainage, different things like that. And that has to be done pretty much right away, so we're not holding up projects or something's not, or any complaints. So Kim is going to be taking through MAC some classes that will help certify her to go out and do some of these inspections.
And so when that happens, would there be a change in the job title and responsibilities at that point?
Again, that should all play into, I would say, principal clerk. I don't know if down the road might go into more, but that we're doing kind of one step at a time.
Well, and would her taking some of that on take away from what you're paying the consultant to go out and do? The inspections?
Not really.
No?
No, not really. It's doing it more in a timely manner, getting
Okay.
it done. He's not, for the fees that we pay John Delano, we periodically, about every couple of years, we send out a list of requirements and we send it to different engineers, just so we can be sure we're being competitive with price and things like that. No one will touch this job for what we pay.
How many permits go out every year?
It varies.
Last year?
Kim, last year, do you remember?
I would have to look in the,
I know we
annual
talked
report.
about that.
It's-
She just,
Like 10, 100, 1,000?
No.
No. Could be,
Like 45 to 55 notice of intents come in a year. But then there's INRADs, there's certificate of compliances, there's.
Which are all
requests
different.
for determinations. Everyone, notice of intents and RDAs, requests for determinations, every one of them has to have a silt fence inspection. Most notice of intents have a few inspections
Right.
for the septic systems. We have roof drain inspections, we have above-ground pool, in-ground pools. All of those require an inspection from our office.
Right, that's what I'm asking. So how many roughly last year?
That's between 45 and 55.
Inspections?
No, permit, so inspection, it depends on a permit, what kind of inspection it would need, so.
Okay.
there are
45
various
to
permits
55.
depending upon the scope of the project
Yes,
that
understood.
the applicant's gonna do.
Kim, your work background is basically clerical, and you're looking to, experientially and otherwise, you're,
In the 13 years that I've been in this department, it's grown much
Gotcha.
more than just
Okay.
being a clerical.
Yeah.
She's gained a lot of experience. She's invaluable with her knowledge, assisting when she's talking to engineers, attorneys. She runs the entire office. The
Yeah,
commission members are
right.
strictly and she keeps us all in line. But,
There you go.
I mean, and preps us for our meetings twice a month.
And how much are the permits?
It, again, it depends upon the scope of the project.
What's the average?
Septic systems are $67.50 is our portion from the state, how the state figures out the cost of notice of intents. But, MS4 can run from $100 to $1,000, and ANRAD can be a couple $1,000s. Just all depends.
I think maybe to piggyback on what you're saying, it is a good idea if we see all the departments that charge fees, if that could somehow be incorporated into this so that we could see,
What the fees are.
like, what revenue are you generating that offsets, you know?
Actually, Clay, you have
Pay
that.
for yourself.
I
I got those numbers from,
today, we just
Today.
got. So administrative fees, so these are additional fees that we came up with for some processing certificates of compliance. So when a project is done, just to get, when you have when an order is issued, when a permit is issued, it's recorded at the registry. So to get rid of that and to finalize it and clear it out, you need a certificate of compliance. We started by generating fees. They're $25, $35, different things. So we've generated, for the first roughly 6 months of this fiscal year, about $1,900 in that. Roughly about $12,000 we've brought in so far this year in notice of intent, so those are the different. And about $4,500
Your share of notice. of
Our
intent.
share.
Your share, yeah.
and about $4,500 in the MS4, the stormwater permits.
And this all goes into the general fund, right? As revenue?
Some fees go into the conservation.
The notice of right, the NOIs go into a revolving. General fund is the administrative fees and the stormwater permits.
So the notice of intent, that was the 12,000?
Yes.
So what does the revolving fund pay?
So the revolving fund will pay, for example, we have a parcel property, town-owned property, and we wanted to get, we wanted the land delineated, so we wanted to see where the wetland lines were. So the commission hired a botanist to go out and delineate the property. And this is all to do with an ongoing filing and abutting property and determining jurisdiction. Does the Conservation Commission have jurisdiction? Is it jurisdictional? Does it follow and flow into a body of water? So we spent money to have the delineation done, and we're having an engineer plan done to locate all the flags and everything like that. So we'll use money for different things like that. Has to be related to conservation.
How much is in the revolving account?
Right now, $37,000.
So how come that doesn't show up on this?
It's not part of the budget, it's a revenue.
But she's saying you're spending things.
They can spend out of that.
We can spend out of that. We spend out of that if we're doing something related to conservation.
Right, so you could pay her salary out of that, right?
Some of it, not entirely all of it. Have to be related to a project being paid out of the fund.
Yeah, that would be the project, pay her.
Correct.
Your arrangement with John is, unlike the planning board, you don't charge an applicant.
No.
It's strictly the notice of intent fee, that's all you
Correct.
get, there's nothing,
Correct.
you know, so you're paying him out of pocket essentially.
Yes. And the NOI, I mean, it can fluctuate, so might be able to pay 1 year, a portion of the salary, but it's not a consistent thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So one of the things I would ask for, if we can get, is a listing by department, all of their revolving accounts. Because through the years, I know the town at town meeting, we voted on, let's have a revolving account here, let's have a revolving account. I think the intent of them are pretty good, but I think everybody needs to understand, what they are, what they're used for, et cetera, things like that. Yep.
There's only about 4: conservation, senior center, library, I'm missing one. Okay.
Recreation committee,
Recreation, thank you.
the school has a couple.
School has 5 or 6, but that's not under 53E and a half. Okay, the 53E and a half revolving funds are only on the town side. They have to be reauthorized every year. The facilities use accounts, or if you will, the
Enterprise funds.
not enterprise,
No.
it's in the word.
Well, if they like to have the
School
cafeteria.
has, but that under the Chapter 70 rules, is fully into the control of the school committee. But when they come in to do their budget, they will tell you what's in those accounts. And those are specifically, like the 53E and a half accounts, they're specifically relegated to those items that they're allowed under the law to have. but every year we reauthorize the spending limit out of the revolving funds at town meeting. So you'll see the 4 accounts that are on the town side of government clearly delineated, because they have to be reauthorized every year.
So those are the only 4 we
Those
have?
are the only 4.
Any other questions for Claire?
Oh, this looks good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Kim.
So the only thing that you want to remember is if you go from, you move up a number of hours in a payroll bracket, you have to go to the personnel committee. And approval as well as the finance committee. So that's twofold.
That still has to happen?
Yes. And any reclassification would have to go through them as well.
A somewhat unrelated, well, maybe not totally unrelated question. Town engineer?
Yes.
Is there a discussion with regard to the creation of that position? Where would you see that fitting into the budget at any point in time?
Someday,
Someday.
we could really use a town engineer, I'm not gonna deny it, but right now engineering firms can't hire engineers.
Yep.
I'm not sure that I'd be any more successful and I know this sounds somewhat hypocritical, but at a town wage, to get an engineer when we're competing against the engineering industry, I don't think we'd be successful. But I'd love to have a town engineer. We could use it in highway, we could use it in conservation. The moment, the best we've been able to procure is engineering services.
Right.
And planning has actually got a bidder for that job at the moment, which is good, so we'll have them on retainer. And then in the meantime, we're gonna have to go job by job.
See, we have to wait for the next recession. But when that happens and everybody's out of work, that's when the state will cut the aid and we won't be able to increase budget.
I just thought of one question, excuse me. You talked before about educational, when there's a percent in the contract for masters. Is there a percent for bachelor's, or is it just a master's degree?
I'm not sure.
It's just a bachelor's degree, but I have to go back
Masters.
and check that, the master's degree, sorry.
It is just a
But-
master's?
Yes, and
It
then,
came from the police, I think, didn't it, back in the...
well, that's Quinn,
That's different,
yeah.
that's Quinn.
So the answer is I'll double check it to be sure. Because the contract's 47 pages and I don't know it all yet, so. So
Yeah. Give it another couple of weeks.
wage scale that,
Oh.
thank you, by the way. This is produced by the union, not by the town. And the contract that this is referring to hasn't been adopted yet, because the union and the town haven't agreed, even though their last contract expired in 2018. So
Oh, I thought that was settled. No?
there's an MOU, but it's not signed. So, yes, I would say that number's correct for a full-time position, if that's what you
Yes.
are aiming to do. But the next question would be, when are we going to adopt the contract?
Right. How many unions are there?
5. Yeah.
It's like 460 people, you said?
You've got, schools have, well, let me go back. On town side of government, there's 5. The school side, there's 3.
So
there's
there's 8
8
unions
total.
for 460 people.
Yeah.
Cool.
Some are easier to deal with than others. David has more experience there.
All right. Next on our agenda, we have Veteran Services. Chris, right?
Face, I was like, I don't know that face. Welcome.
You don't need it?
Yes.
Veterans.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Veterans. Mr. Chairman, would you mind if I borrow the coin?
No, not at all. You can sit wherever you would like.
Turn it down.
Yeah, it's great. Good to get
Welcome.
that.
How's everything going so far?
Things are going well. Things are going real well. I appreciate the support the town and the staff here at the town hall has, supported me the last 6 months, so it's been a real good transition.
Good.
Great. Feel free just to start taking us through your 21 budget.
Okay, the top line there, 5117, is my salary for the next year. That's just a flat 2% on top of what I am currently making this fiscal year, and that wraps it up for the personnel department. Moving on to
straightforward.
the veteran service expenses. The
So just a quick question,
Yes,
so
go
why
ahead.
is your salary going down? This is
What's
the
that?
first time I've seen
Well,
it going
and
down.
thank you for asking that question. Bob was making, I'm sorry, my predecessor was making more than I was previously.
Oh, okay.
So that 2% is what I was hired in at, that's 2% off of that. That's why the salary went down. That's the reason for the
Oh,
decrease.
right, because you just came in.
So I just came in, hired in at a lower rate.
Gotcha.
You know, Bob was doing this for 11 years, so.
So you're saving us some money.
Yeah, that's
Great news.
right off the bat, it's the plan. So we'll move into the expenses, and $1,000 for the office expenses. And the way I was looking at that is, I've looked at previous years and the 6 months I have here on the job, and the 223 that was coming out of computers. You know, just combining that with the 722 and then just rounding it up to 1,000. The main reason is I'm taking on more veterans. We're helping them with more claims. We're doing one more 115. This way, I'm printing more stuff. You know, so that's the main cost, and at $150 a pop for the ink, that's the biggest expense I have office-wise coming out of my budget. So I want to make sure that I have enough for that.
Plus, during our discussions.
Yes.
You talked about a software program,
Mhm.
something that you're looking at that will help reduce that in the future anyway.
Exactly.
450.
That's where the 450 comes in, and what that database does is an East Bridgewater veteran walks into my office, whether they've done claims with the DAV, the American Legion, the VA themselves, I can get in that system, continue working with that veteran, picking up the ball, instead of starting at square one, filling out a regular claim form, finding out, oh, they've already got stuff in the system. This way, it does a lot of my homework for me, and I'm allowed to, when we're filling out forms, if we want to, as soon as their information's in there, as soon as I click on a form, everything that can auto-populate for that veteran auto-populates. So data entry, as opposed to 30, 45 minutes, is cut down to 10 or 15 minutes with the system. So it's saving me time, and it's saving me money, because I only print what I need. I don't need to print everything, have them sign, and everything like that. So that's gonna help cut costs over the long haul.
Nice.
Is that like an annual payment? Or
Yes, that'll be, thanks for asking, that'll be an annual 450 coming out. And once I complete this fiscal year and see where I am at, you know, with the other office supplies and everything, I can make further adjustments there and see how much of an impact it really does have. But so far, I've had it for 2 months, and it's cut down on my paper use a lot, and it's helped out with the time management, so.
That's great.
Next, I spoke with Paul Cannell of the Patriotic Committee, and I asked him I said, hey, I've got a line item here for flags. Do you guys need anything? I looked back in the records. They haven't ordered flags. They said they have their own fund that takes care of that. This fiscal year, they will not need some. I would like to just, you know, keep it in there just in case they do need it, because it is very helpful. The first week on the job here, we had a RIP flag in our town hall flag right here, and first thing I did was call him and say, hey, Paul, who do I call to take care of the flags? And he said, it'll be taken care of 3 o'clock tomorrow, don't worry about it. I mean, so that's the type of stuff they do. So anything I can do to help them, you know, help all of us.
But there's nothing on the
It
flag
says 0,
line.
yeah.
Yes, no, not this year.
Oh, next
You
year,
just want to keep the
Yeah,
line-
I just want
the
to keep, I
line
just want to
item.
keep it open, just in case it does come back up, because, they might run into hard times, and then this way, we also, I request them through the state. It's a fairly simple process as well.
12 or 13 years ago, there was a big battle in town about who's gonna pay for the flags, so this is good.
The next line item I have is the state and travel mileage. I looked at what was previously in there, and like I said, just bumped it up $350, because I am traveling a little bit more, going to a couple more conferences and that sort of thing, rather than my predecessor. So, just wanted to make sure I had enough in there. Plus, again, if this is another one of these line items that once I complete this year, I'll be able to make a better guesstimate on that 341. So I wanted to keep it the same, and then as I go through the whole year, next year I can make a better adjustment. And then the dues and memberships went up $55. Main reason for that is our state organization put on national training for us, and I am now part of a national VSO association. This way, instead of talking with Boston or Providence, I can just fight the VA claim from my office and not have to reach out, and that's a $50 fee per year for that. So that's the reason for the uptick there. But
Can we get
this
the
way,
union to pay that?
what's that?
Can we get the union to pay that?
No, not as of yet, no. So that would bring my total veteran service expenses to $3,800 for the fiscal year. And then, does anybody have any questions before I move on to veterans assistance?
No, I think the software is a good idea. Link up with the other providers. It's a great idea.
All right, veterans assistance, be a flat, $240,000. We have currently 19 East Bridgewater veterans on the program. The way it breaks down is we have 12 on single budget, 6 on medical only, and 1 in a refund status. And I'm going to break that down for you even more. If they are a budget single, that means we pay them a certain stipend every month, all 12 months of the year. We're going through the recertification process right now. Medical only means we don't pay them a stipend, but we pay their medical insurance for them. So medical only is less out of our pocket than the budget single.
Yeah, but I thought they go to the VA, don't they?
Well, and that's where doing more VA claims, I'm getting with the 12 of them, and if there's any federal money they can get, because what I'd like to do, and it's better for the veteran and better for the town, to get the veteran on federal money as opposed to state money.
Well, at the same time, in this fund, we get reimbursed.
Yeah, well, and that leads me to my next point, Dave. 75% of this comes back to the town at the end of the fiscal year.
Oh, good.
So-
Okay. Yeah, show that on here.
So that is a good benefit, and again, I'm working with the ones that we currently have and the ones that come into my office just to make sure, they know whether or not they're getting whether it's, because they're monthly, everybody gets a monthly check, it's just different categories, and, different categories cost more than others. And just doing a little broadcasting for the future. Unfortunately, we probably will be losing a few people just by natural causes or just the way life goes. So we probably will keep it right around 18 or 20. But that's where it's at right now. Like I said, 75%, of that does come back.
Do you get data that would show, like, how many veterans are in the town versus how many are in your program?
Yes, so, the MVSOA that the state program, that association that I'm with, the way they look at it is if you have 10% is usually on your program. That's of the total population of the town. Right now, like I said, we're sitting at 19 probably gonna go up to 20. As far as I know, I've got a list from the clerk and from the assessor. We've got roughly between 1,000 and 1,200 veterans in town. Of those, I've spoken to about 450 of them. And this is, so as far as that, you know, we've got a good system. What we're running into is, unless they're at the housing authority, or unless they're in some other low-budget housing, you know, majority of the town doesn't qualify because it's a means test to get into the program. So that's, if you know, that's what I've kind of run into, and so that's why, like I said, I'd like to say, you know, more veterans we can help, and but that's the buzzsaw we're running into as far as getting more people on. Well,
Yeah, no, that makes sense, thank you.
any other questions on that?
It's pretty straightforward.
I would also like to touch base with the passports that my predecessor did, and I've continued. And I got with the treasurer's office, and as of the last turn-in we did last month, in the last 6 months of the year, we contributed $5,400 to the general fund.
Nice.
And with the business that has been coming in just the first week of this year, I've looked at the projections, and we've beat every month so far. I don't know why. Maybe everybody's coming to the new guy. Maybe everybody wants a passport. Either way,
Paying to get to Boston.
the breakdown on that is every new passport application is $35 to the town, and then if they need a picture, it's 10 on top of that. So most people that come in are paying the town $45 for a passport. The passport agency did change up the way we mail it to them. It's $7.35 flat rate now. If I put 7 in there, I put 1 in there, it's $7.35. So I've budgeted that out. Of the 5,400, if we double that and go 10.8 for the whole year, we're looking at less than 10% postage-wise coming out. So
So
that's
where
the
does that
breakdown.
cost for the film and everything come, out of the veterans budget?
There is there's a line for passport expenses, and it is.
Show up on the
Is
sheet.
that in the general fund?
I was gonna say it's in the. I've got it in my email. I'm trying to think. It was.
Used to be in the clerks.
Sorry?
Used to be in the clerk's office.
Passport expenses.
Yeah, they're in the clerk's office budget. But it's gotta move to his.
And it's, I was gonna say, from what I've just seen, looking at previous stuff, it's roughly 2,500, but I've looked at it, and, passport expenses I have used since I've been on, roughly $210 in the last 6 months. And that was to replenish what I have taken out. So, compared to what we are putting into the general fund, what's coming out in expenses is definitely in our favor by far.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you said 75% of the 240 is covered by reimbursement.
Yes,
right?
this is the
So
state.
That's really only costing us 60,000, and plus we have 50, 60 with your expenses, 55 or something, so that's less than 10,000 a month.
Yeah, I mean, your total budget's up only a little over 1/10%, so.
Yeah, you're doing a good job.
Well,
Great. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you very
any other
much.
questions? All right,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Okay, we will move on. Our next budget presentations from the Building and Planning Department.
Steve's making you do this by yourself?
Yeah, he's on the planning board meeting right now. Oh, sure.
This is bigger.
Yes.
I have to be able to read it, so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ken, in terms of supplies in this building,
Yeah,
everybody runs their own deal.
every department runs their own. The only, we actually are changing the procurement on where we purchase. So some departments favor, let's say, WB Mason, some favor Staples. We're consolidating that into more limited, so that we're getting our
Price
purchasing
point better,
power
yeah, sure.
maximized. And we just opened an Amazon Prime account for the town. They're beating the hell out of WB Mason, so by making people look to see, you know, not just order by, you know, okay, I've always done it this way, look, check.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Okay, welcome. Feel free to start taking us through.
Sure, if you just jump right to the second page, so you can see that there's a large increase in the budget this year, and that's because of a retirement. The sick leave buyback and the vacation buyback program they have, that's what we're anticipating for, the numbers we're anticipating for that retirement.
So,
Do you see that under planning board?
yeah, so who's retiring, 5125 or 5126?
5125.
Now, is that official or is that speculative at this point?
It's speculative, it's not official.
$20,000 bonus.
I guess it won't be official till she actually,
Who's negotiating these contracts?
Intent there already?
How do we get on that board?
yes, I've had the discussion with her. I don't know the exact date or anything, you know.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Saying they might retire.
No, I'm pretty sure, you know,
Yeah, I mean,
Pretty sure.
the answer, of course, is you can't force
Right.
someone. You basically project that this should be when they do, and, you know, they may or may not.
But if for some reason
Right.
we have the anticipation and somebody says, yes, I'm gonna retire, they change their minds, that would be unexpended funds the next year anyway.
So what we're gonna do, and you'll see this come through in a couple of other department budgets, we're gonna pull all of the extraordinary retirement out and put it in an article, and fund it that way. Two reasons. One, it doesn't screw up your comparison of the actual cost of running the department. And two, if she retires this year, the article's available. If she doesn't retire till next year, the article's available. If you put it in the operating budget, we have to remember to put it in again next year if she doesn't retire this year. Therefore, we create that dollar amount once. We put it in an article, and the article stays open as long as that employee doesn't retire.
Or remember to take it out, because I might
Correct.
forget. you
Well,
know.
we will be taking it out of that. There's no other place.
No,
to
no, I'm
take
just
it.
saying, if we didn't do that.
Yeah, correct. And then the other problem is you're not inflating the department's operating budget
Right.
by these artificial expenses.
Yep.
Is that your thought process on how we'd handle this on a go-forward basis while these
Yes.
contracts are in place?
Yeah, I'm not, it's been in the past practice, it's been incorporated in the operating budget.
Right.
But that screws up any comparison, because you have to remember, well, when did so-and-so retire?
I agree.
I need to be able to straight line it when we compare 2005 to 2020, and not remember, well, so-and-so retired that year.
Right.
Because I won't remember. So we'll pull these, what I call compensating balances, meaning balances that are due to those employees. We'll put it into an article. The article stays live. Every year, we'll put an amount in equal to the number of dollars retiring. And then, of course, if it's not expended, it just continues to roll and just underfunded at a different level.
Right, but that never shows up on here, like, you almost wanna have like the inspector, like, how much, are you the inspector?
yes.
So like, you must know how much vacation time you have accrued, yeah?
Myself?
Yeah.
I've only been here for 2 years. I think,
None.
None?
none. As far as the buyback goes, I'm not anticipating being part of that for years.
No, I know, I understand that, I'm not saying that anyone going on, but I'm saying is like every year you would accrue, I don't know, 1 day's vacation, right?
Yeah.
Or 2 weeks, I guess, I don't know what it is here, but.
Right.
So we could say like this year, in addition to your salary, you also accrued, your vacation time, which you will probably cash out at some point down the road. You know what I mean? Because that's,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
you know, so
And I
they
think
can
what-
see, like, you know, you mentioned 5125 is leaving, right? That's
Yep.
the one, so, you know, if you had a line here that said, yeah, 5125's salary is 55,621, and they have, you know, $18,000 in accrued sick leave, right? So we would see that, how much they're accruing every year, that's in addition to the salary, correct?
Well,
And
we
that
won't
gets
be-
monetized
well,
at the end of the game.
Not necessarily, because if he uses a vacation time and doesn't sell it, then it's part of his salary line. If he sells his back, then that's the extraordinary, which kicks it down to a budget line.
Right.
But he's not accruing enough vacation time to not use it at this point.
Yeah, no, I mean, call it you personally, I was just saying, as an employee, every employee's got a bank, it sounds like, right? And then they
Yeah,
get to
some
the-
employees use it all, some carry it over.
Right, so what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
that must be, you know, tracked somewhere. I mean, I know the employees, if I'm an employee, I know exactly how much vacation time I have.
Yeah.
And then, so that would give an exposure to the town, right?
It is on their financial statements, like a compensated absences line, I believe, so that it is tracked like by the department, so as far as like on the financials for the town, it's a liability, but you wouldn't have it on the individual budgets unless you plan on paying it out that year. But it definitely is tracked and recorded.
Gotcha, okay, so look for it on the financial statement.
So other than that, the only thing that went up this year was the salaries. Everything else, we kept, the budget's the same. That's because a couple of years ago, when I started here, the budget was handed to me. It didn't make a whole lot of sense. I tried to rework it and reorganize it. This year, after this year, we're gonna go back and look and see which one of these line items that are being carried forward that don't need to be carried forward. Some of them we anticipate, under the planning board, professional services, engineering, and architecture, we're carrying 2,000. Hopefully, we don't need to use that. But that money has to be there because the planning board themselves may need to have an engineer to go out and do something as far as mapping goes for the board. Otherwise, they have the client pay for it. Anything else, they have the client pay for. But if they're looking to make, say, a zoning change, and they want to know, you know, is this a parcel of land owed by the town, we need it surveyed. They might need it surveyed immediately. So we're only carrying 2,000. I think that's fine. I don't think we need any more than that. So the same idea with the rest of these, and we're just kind of, this year, keeping the budget the same, and then we're going to see how we look next year, if we need to cut any more or.
So how does, we talked in the earlier meeting with the Conservation Committee, and they utilized John Delano, and now you're going out in a different direction, and that contract didn't get renewed,
Correct.
right? So isn't that gonna impact your engineering fees?
No, so that engineering, the money for that engineer that they're looking for, all of that will be charged to the applicant. The applicant will have to, they'll put up some money ahead of time. When they come in with, say, subdivision, they'll put up a bunch of money. They say, we'll have to send the engineer out to verify certain things. It comes off of their bill. If they have to add more money to it, they do. They pay for all of that.
So where do you pay for it now for when you need it? It's out of that engineering line?
Yes, if this is something that would be done for the planning board, not on behalf of the client.
So what if the planning board has to go out into a new subdivision and do some work? From the conversation that myself, you and Steve had in the hallway
Yeah.
that day, you know, about whether it's about the easements or the sidewalks, because we've had a lot of little developments that we've had some issues with, right?
Yep.
So what, we're gonna hold an escrow, I guess, is that what it's called?
Yep.
And my understanding was that we might need some help to understand what we should really be holding in contingency or escrow and stuff like that. Do you see that as a problem at all?
I don't see it at all as a problem. I think they should pass all of the cost on to the applicant.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, they might even be discussing that tonight at tonight's planning board meeting, at
Okay.
the end of the meeting, how they're gonna move forward with this and to streamline that better. And then if there were anything that came up, let's say the town was gonna accept an old ancient development where there was no money left. There was nothing held in escrow, and they needed $15,000 for engineering. Kind of on the same idea as the retirement, we would go and look for an article. We wouldn't have that in a budget and hold that, you know. That's too much to carry, way too much to continue carrying forward.
So then moving forward, that if there was something you wanted to, somebody wanted new development in, I'm gonna use real simple Dave terms, okay, so I understand it. And you need to look at what has to be held back in escrow, whatever, you have them engineer submit something to you, right? Because that would be at their expense.
That's right.
If you guys didn't agree with it and you wanted further review, you'd be passing that off to the developer too, saying, we want this, 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 and this.
Yes,
Great, that's the way to go.
yep,
Yeah.
yep, that agreement is
Too
made.
many developers in this town who are not done right.
And that agreement they're making with the developer prior to
Okay.
signing the subdivision plan.
Good, because that's what we had talked about out there, but,
Yep.
and actually, you were a big advocate for that, so.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yep,
That's great.
yeah. Let's see. Other than that, I mean, I think, as you can see with my budget, I think it's 87% of the budget, I believe, is salary. So,
So if you pull the retirement stuff out of this, we're really gonna be seeing a 2% increase just about anyway, right?
It's gonna be a much more nominal increase.
yeah.
Patrick does a great job controlling expenses there and making sure that the proper expenses are passed on to the petitioner, so.
Yeah, we try and keep
Yeah,
it
we
as,
pulled that out, that's one of the problems with, you know, looking at that, that's a distorter.
right. There was no need
Because I
to.
just did a little back of the napkin here, and it comes out really close. Okay.
Yeah, it's actually a
Great.
decrease.
Are all the fees online now? I know you had talked about.
Yes.
Okay.
The fees are online.
So that's how we're going to.
We completed the building permitting part of it is done. Everything's online, everything's working great. Now we're working to implement the planning and zoning applications online also, putting those on People GIS, interconnecting everything for all three departments.
Nice.
And hopefully, getting our the zoning map changed slightly. So hopefully we're gonna get the new zoning map. Instead of having them just print out a new wall map, we want them to put that digitally, and we want them to incorporate into maps online, so any resident at any time can just go on the computer, pull it up. They'll actually see the zoning line on their property.
Oh, that's great.
That's powerful. Now, I've been asking all the other departments, so, like the inspection fees and stuff, like when's the last time those went up?
We made a slight adjustment a couple years ago. They did go up, some of them went up, some of them went down. What we did is we reorganized it and got it manageable, because we had 2 pages of fees.
Yeah, no good.
It was all over the place. There was no flat fees. But I do think they need to go up again. We need to have that discussion probably this year and talk about whether we do it this year or next year, but I do think they need to go up again. And as Brian put it, they need to go where they belong. Just rip the Band-Aid off and put them where they belong.
How much is my siding permit gonna cost me?
That'll still be a flat fee.
Okay.
Those will still be the minimum.
More.
Whatever then, 'cause I'm not doing anything else.
North.
We'll go up, so pull all your permits now.
It's good for a year, right?
Right.
That has to be approved by that board, not this one.
Right. But that has to go, they do need to, part of one of the good things about People GIS is now we get all the graphs and charts and everything, we can easily look at it and see where the revenue's coming from, and where it's not coming from, where it should be coming from, where it should be going up. Because when it doesn't match, I think this year, the revenue went up about 9%, 9 or 10%, I think it went up. But it's still way below our number. These should match. We should be able to fund the building department, otherwise the taxpayers are paying for it.
Right.
So the building that's going on should be funded by the people that are doing the building.
So I couldn't agree more.
And it really could be, I think if the fees went up to where they belonged, if you look at some of the surrounding communities, I think they could.
I think if you show people too, hey, it costs, $150,000 to run this, and, we gotta put, we gotta pay for that, right?
And we're trying to, before we hit them with all that, we're trying to increase our presence in the community so people understand that we are working for them.
Yeah.
And one of the things we did, finally, it took me forever, but we got an East Bridgewater Building Department Twitter and Facebook page. So everybody go on there and like it, and whatever you do, thumbs up it. And that'll be part of us trying to keep what we're doing in the department out there and up to date, so that when we do raise people are gonna understand that we are doing something
They
for
can
them.
contact you right there on social media.
If we look at what you just
Right, they
handed
will.
us,
So what is the
talking about a
revenue for the
1.5 to 2.25%
I think
increase
we were
without the retirement. and
Hundred
sick-
and 33 this year.
And also remember inspection fees are covered by the
Yeah, yeah.
So this is,
You know what, if you want, I can get you
should be.
No, I just
only take 5
I'd like
minutes,
to know
but
it sometime.
The,
No, it's not too far off, but he's right. We haven't looked at
Right.
these in a while. We should be looking at it, and people build
But
them.
you could
should
maybe
be
have
falling
I
into
could see
buy.
having like a reasonable target, maybe it's not
we got
100%.
comparable towns
For
around
each of the
us.
departments, maybe, I don't know if you do this or somebody, but someone, hey, you guys should,
No,
your goal is 75, or 25, or
right, and there needs to be, I think a lot of the
Dr.
building
Kool-Aid, but
departments,
the others not so much.
they don't raise their fees very often. They think they should stay up to date with them, and probably go with every code cycle. That's every 3 years.
Makes sense.
That
the
makes
other
sense.
thing that's important to note about Patrick's tenure here is the people's GIS and the online permitting is his page. And this has been a godsend to his department and to the town. It means that we have 24/7, 365 permitting
Oh, yeah.
applications available. If you wanna do a permit for a deck in your pajamas on Christmas Eve, you can do it. Just don't send me the picture.
No, that's great, there's no video. But that's an excellent point, and I think we should quantify that. We will come out and say, there's a lot of permits that are pulled on the weekend.
Oh, yeah.
A
Okay,
l-
fine.
And if you look at the permits that are pulled on the weekend, roofing and furnace changes and things like that, classically, those are permits that never got pulled.
Yeah, so it's getting more people to buy into the
There's
system.
a ton of work out there that gets done
Ease of
without
use.
permits, and it gets done on the weekends. Seeing someone pull a permit on a weekend just proves our point that these contractors wanted to pull the permit, but it's such a pain to go to the town hall, they figured, I'll sneak this job in and see what happens. Now they're pulling them.
Well, see, it is, tell me if I'm wrong here, but if there's a furnace job or something that gets done, and it doesn't have a permit, and damage occurs in insurance won't cover it because there's no permit,
That's
right?
that's up to the insurance provider, but you're right, there could be they could have an issue. A lot of what our permitting is for is a service for them. You wanna have the permit, so you have a record that it was done and inspected,
Right.
and you,
Quality assurance.
yeah, it's really a service.
Yeah, no, it's good.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
No, approved.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
good, thanks.
Next on our agenda is the assessor's office.
Yeah, and I just paid my tax bill today, and this is good.
Yeah, it went up about 5% if anyone wants to know why your values went up. I've got a lot of calls today.
I was like, I'm just gonna throw that away. It comes out, I just threw mine away.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
like, it comes out on my mortgage, I'll figure it out later.
Good, Ron.
I guess we're doing the only thing we can do about it.
So,
right?
these went out by email, but did not get out early enough for you guys to get them, is that the deal?
I forwarded
Depends
them
on-
out to everyone, but
Yes,
it
you
was,
Too late.
it was like 2 o'clock
Okay,
or,
we'll see
yeah.
if we can't do this better next time.
Yeah.
I think you just got your exercise in. I don't, we're okay.
Put 'em on, can we get a screen going?
It's been
Just
stressing me out.
Some of us are more efficient than others.
put 'em on the screen.
Can the camera pick up the sweat?
Okay,
Assessor.
feel free to take us through.
Oh, okay. So basically, the only, up top, I increased one of my, or hope to increase,
stuff.
as this is pending approval, of one of my clerks. who's been working 20 hours, and I'd like to put her to 24 hours. I'm working on,
How many, how many people in the department now?
so right now we have a full-time and 2 part-time, and then myself, who's full-time.
The part-time people get full benefits?
Yes. We used to have 2 full-time and a part-time. So when when the last woman that was working full-time left, I found this woman that is in our office now, and she came on as part-time. And she is basically the valuation expert in my office. So our office does exemptions, we do chapter land, we do a lot of administration things too. But then we have the valuation of the properties. So that's where my background is, deep. And then I brought the full-time woman that was here before. She was a certified general appraiser and had a background, a master's. She was excellent. When she left, I needed to find someone who had that evaluation part, an appraiser. So Sheila joined us, and she's great. She works diligently and handles all the cyclical inspections, and she just getting better and better. She's my kind of right-hand person. She is limited to how many hours she can work right now because of her family situation. I'm hoping attrition-wise, I have a plan, because currently my whole department will retire in basically the same year. Not a great thing.
No pressure.
Coming at us. So I went to we had seminar. Right now there's a lot of assessors in the state that are older and that are gearing towards retirement, and they were, encouraging us to bring people up within our office and train them and things like that. So I won't go, we're still a ways away from that, so I do have somewhat of a plan. I've gone over it with my Board of Assessors, and part of it is that when we can move Sheila up hour-wise, we're gonna work on that, so. That was it. What I did was renegotiated with my valuation maintenance. We have a company called PK Associates, and I've kind of been doing this with him since I started. The more we do, the less we pay, the less they do. So I've been balancing that out. This is the 5th year of the last year that we had kind of had it's not a contract, but it's an agreement on how it goes, because we have regular years, and then we have a certification year. It used to be every 3 years, and they changed it to every 5. So we're on that we're doing a certification year this coming year, 2021. It's been 5 years. We were when they changed the rule in the state and the new laws came out, we were bumped to that 5th year of everybody else. So they had to kind of get us in. So we've gone a long time without it. And we're ready for it, but it's a costly process. We pay them more, we work more, we have to make sure everything's up to speed for the Department of Revenue, and they come in and they really scrutinize, which they will probably extra scrutinize us because it's been so long. But anyway, we're in good shape. We've had this plan all along. We should be fine. But I did take some of that. I was able to bring that down because this year is a certification year. I have money left in a article from 2016 of like $20,000. So that with this will cover what the cost is this coming year. Then I'm renegotiating with them.
So does that cover in the $5,700 that wasn't spent last year? Tagging that onto it? I mean, you did reduce it by 2,000.
Yeah, no, I've been turning money in for the past 2 years, or I'm always trying to cut money. So what I do for PK, and I don't pay them of that 17, one year they were supposed to do our commercial, and that didn't work out so well. Their gentleman was having some health issues, and I went back and renegotiated with him and took $6,000 off of his bill and turned it back in, but ultimately, I'm trying to get back to this place where I do have a full-time person in my office, like I used to. I had 2 full-times and I also have someone that's been there a long time, with a lot of vacation time, and so I will turn it back in, but I will be protective of it, let me just say that. Because I see where I'm trying to go, and not necessarily do people retire when we think they will either, so, it's not like just a definite, I'm just trying to plan that out, but, I've also been.
Time it's not factored into any of these numbers here, right?
No, it will be on as far as what you're making and bringing someone in.
Right.
And what you have to pay to, say, have a new person come in, or I would like to get it back to a full-time person in that other position that went to a part-time.
Right, but I mean, there's no additional sick leave buyback in here or vacation buyback that
Not this year, nope.
Where does the longevity come from?
The longevity, that's the 3-year longevity that was in my contract.
In yours, okay. And where's the additional $1,000 in the stipend line?
Where's the what?
Additional $1,000 in the stipend line, it's a 10% stipend, isn't it?
Yep.
So,
Oh, the 2 $500 stipends for an MAA.
gotcha,
Um,
okay. So it's educational, basically, or,
Yeah.
in addition to the, yeah, all right.
But we haven't paid that for 2 years for the last year, because there was an issue with the way that the article was written, and they paid it 2 years, and then Phyllis, our accountant, decided that the way that it was worded may create some questions, so she didn't give it to him last year. And I'm still trying to work on it. I talked to Brian about it today, but.
We haven't.
So we either have to straighten it out with a new article or get legal to rule on,
Applicability.
yes. And George and I went back and forth a little bit about this, but nothing really came of it, so I think that Brian will we'll find out one way or the other where
We'll
what
fix it.
direction that we're going. We'll fix it. So I've left that in because I just turn it back in.
You expect to pay it?
Yeah, I hope I do. Are able to give that to them for earning that MAA degree or that MAA designation. The other thing that I've been, for a while, the People GIS that were hearing about with Patrick, we brought it into our department quite a while ago. I don't know if anyone was here at that point. You were. So
Just me.
I was finding ways to fund it by using articles or using my mapping. One year it cost, I had to come up with $7,000. Another year, I had to take 3 out of mine, but I had an article that we could use with it. That I'm hoping is gone from my watch with the new way that we're looking at People GIS.
My goal would move all the people's GIS into the IT
IT,
department.
yeah.
In the IT department.
I think that makes sense.
Take it all out of the departments. It's a town-wide, it's in DPW, it's in planning and zoning, it's in assessors, it's gonna be.
Yeah, we were all having to come up with certain amounts, so when Patrick came on board, he got this whole designed program for him, and what we realized, and then I was paying for the original assessing part of it, and then looking to see if we were double paying, which we aren't.
We're not, no. But
Right.
we're gonna collect it all into one budget line
That makes sense.
in Ryan's budget for IT
Will that be this year or
this year.
this year?
Yeah,
If
so you'll
we-
see these
These will
budgets
come out,
adjusted
yeah.
when I can get Phyllis's
And that's,
attention.
that's one thing that we've,
To like a cost
Things
per
are-
user?
There's cost per module, but I'm gonna, two things, I'm getting a grant, so that's gonna pay for the cost. And breaking it down by department is no longer, I think, efficient. It's a general cost, talk about like consolidating. So we'll see that pulled out of all the departments and run into the IT. Then I guess my question would be, when we allocate cost per department, you'll have to say a certain percentage of town hall overhead needs to be assigned to each department, but to break out the phone bill, to break out the copy bill, to, it's probably unnecessary. But and IT is becoming more critical, mission critical, so we'll just have an IT department with IT costs, and I can probably break down the IT costs by employee, if you will, because, it's your email account, your Office 365, et cetera. So it'll just be easier to consolidate it.
Right.
yeah, and as these things have been happening over these years, we've been bringing this stuff in, and we haven't had a clear-cut way of funding them. So, so there would be articles, or there would be, we have to pay for it. And then, last year, I wasn't happy with my mapping vendor, because he was a little late in getting things to it, and Scott, the police chief, had to have this thing done in time to get a grant, and it was a crisis, and,
Make a map of
we
the
didn't pay him.
town?
I didn't,
Is that what
What do you
the
do?
prices to make a map
I
of the
said,
town?
this was really bad, you didn't do what your contract said you were doing this year.
Right.
So you can look that up. So that's what I'm saying, it's never, I'd like it to be, I have a feeling that now we're moving in the right direction, where all these things will go where they need to be, in the right place. And this new mapping, gentleman, the CAI technology, they have a very good reputation, but they will charge me more than this gentleman did. But he went and got a job with the town and tried to do it at the same time he was but he knew our system, and he did a good job up until last year. And, I left on good terms with him, and he did not require that amount. So that got turned back in. Yeah, I don't know if anybody has any more questions.
I'm just curious, like, you go online, you see a lot of things like, Zillow tells you, come on, hey, house estimate this much, Realtor.com.
Zillow's not good. No.
Have you guys done any research into how close some of these are?
To Zillow?
Or Realtor, I mean, there's.
Yeah, our assessments are within 3 to 4% usually of 5% maybe. The state makes us 10% like this, within the sale price. And we watch MLS, we have all of that in our office. Actually, that's another story, but, I have my own account for MLS, and we use that,
But how close is the assessment you guys come up with?
really close. Like, we're good, and then we see it coming. We're seeing the prices right now of 2019. So last month, we got them all in. So I see what the sale price is, I see what my assessment is. We run through them, we're looking at MLS, we're figuring it out.
She's
And we're good.
being modest because her differential or variance is less than 3%. In most towns, it's greater than 15%, closer to 20.
Well, why don't you just use the MLS number then?
Well, because it's not always correct, and.
Well,
That's what
no,
I'm
an
asking, how
MLS
often
won't
is it
take,
off?
an MLS is a current sale price, like we would like to, but when you're doing mass appraisals, we can't get every sale, go in, change this one house. And then the houses that never sell would stay where they were, you know, like, we have to analyze, all these raised ranches came in and now they're not selling for 320, now they're selling for 350 to 370. Then we look at each one, and then we make a blanket adjustment on trying to cover where the raised ranches are going.
Gotcha.
And then we're doing a lot of cyclical, which a lot of towns don't do, or they pay a company to do them. And no one's gonna do it as good as someone that's working in town that knows the area. And so, we have a good,
She's accurate.
yeah, we have a good take on it. So I'm, every year that I go to the Department of Revenue and they look at our information, they kind of go like, geez. But I'm proud of that, but I work hard at that. That's what I do. I'm an assessor and I'm an appraiser and I'm
Yeah.
certified and I'm a designated but there's a reason.
And she's a perfectionist.
So pride. No, but I'm just saying that's interesting. You know what I mean? It's cool when it all works, and mass appraising is hard because of how you have to do it. But if you put the time in and you don't cut the corners, like some people will change things to make numbers work, when we don't, and eventually it starts to work in the way it's supposed to work. So our vendors love us because we don't mess with their stuff. So it actually will work the way they design it to, and they're brilliant in how they figure this stuff out. Like, thank goodness I have a great company, and I have the guy that owns it, it's a small company, but he's really smart, and him and I work together a lot. I think that's why he keeps cutting down my prices a little bit, because he doesn't have to oversee us as much as, I'm not gonna, I'm sorry, I don't mean to say that,
That's
but
okay.
it's good.
It's good
we have
background
good-
information for the
We have
committee.
a good department, yeah, we're, like I said, the woman that, I add me hours to, she's kind of invaluable to us right now. She's willing to do the work, and she's a really, you know, that kind of person you try to find that does the job, it shows up every day. Everyone in my department's like that.
So Brian, she'll have to go to personnel board as well.
You have to send, in her case, it's just a quick memo because it's small.
Okay.
But yes, it needs to go through personnel.
Yeah, and I think that as we get, I'm sensing that with Brian here, there's more of a, kind of a, we're on the right track to get everything straightened out where it needs to be, so that, you know, we're not, a lot of stuff that would be coming in new, that we have to figure out how to bring in, and like the technology stuff. We gotta keep making this change. It's like, now we have to do this different thing, because downstairs in 911, they require a different kind of a mapping thing. So yeah, now we gotta add that layer to it. So you're always trying to work that stuff out, and where are we gonna put it in our, and everything. But we're starting to like actually have an IT department, which is amazing. And we used to have a little group of us, John Haynes, me, Tim Tarrant, and Brian, and we'd meet with like, well, all right, how are we gonna do this, you know? We didn't really have that. So it's nice to know that I don't have to think about it too much anymore.
It just means when Ryan comes into his budget, people get it. Because I'm throwing a lot of stuff that wasn't previously there into his department, so.
Makes sense. So
And
have
you're
it,
taking it from other places.
Yes.
right.
In a grand scheme of things, it's sort of net neutral, sort of, because it's still an increase. But the Office 365 is going to cost us more. The backup for the email accounts to make us compliant with the Public Records Act is costing us more, but we're more efficient by consigning it into one department. So, yes, overall, it's going to cost us a little more, but we're doing things correctly, centralizing it, we're creating, IT is so mission critical to what we do, that treating it like the stepchild is no longer acceptable. So we have to recognize that everything we do, and we really got a lesson today because the server went down, the principal server of the town went down. So I'm trying to get into the building, and my swipe fob doesn't even work because the computers are down. So,
Good.
I mean, you know, we talk about a snow day. Well, when the computer goes, when the server goes down, your internet goes out, your email goes out, you might as well go home. You know? So, it is a whole different mentality, especially for, you know, somebody who grew up in the age of typewriters, and the typewriter got a cover, and you put a cover on it, you didn't use it all day. Now we sit and stare at our screen all day. And if the computer goes down, you should hear the hooting and hollering, so, I think the thing that blew my mind the most was trying to swipe into the building and couldn't get in.
Yeah, right. Are there any other questions for Paula?
No, this is interesting.
I mean,
I do
I'll
wanna send
have
her
to-
out with
yeah,
a little bit of a compliment. The accurate assessment is absolutely vital to fairness and equity in taxes. If there's a tax levy that's spread over the whole town, if everybody's house is appraised properly and accurately, then everybody pays their fair share. If somebody doesn't pay their fair share, somebody else is paying more than their fair share. So it's very critical, it's important that assessments be fair, updated, and checked. And considering the amount of properties we have in the town, I would say it is. When people look at their property values in particular, they can look at the tax value, and it's pretty close to
Yeah,
real
we-
market value.
We talk to a lot of people before they file abatements. I would say 50% of the time they But, it's just that giving them that knowledge. I live in this town, and my tax bill is really high, but, it is what it is. I have a big house. I should've thought of that before I built it. But it's easy to relate to people when they come in and do that. But the other thing I wanted to say is, once we get this straight, and I don't have to pay for any more of the GIS out of my account, and where I've been turning things in and things like that, it'll become clearer, and then we can adjust. But, it's been a kind of say 3 or 4 or 5 years since we've gotten this GIS. Sometimes there's some leftover in an article that Phyllis says is okay, it's mapping, or it's GIS, or it's technology. And then sometimes there isn't, and then I'm digging it out, because I have to pay it, because I signed a contract a while back with them. So, that's how that's been working, but I can see a clearer vision with this IT thing.
That's
It's
great.
exciting to know that we're not gonna all kind of, we've had times when we all, at the end of the year, we're like, all right, we gotta chip in, or we. Luckily,
Pass the hat around.
everybody is really good in this town as far as department-wise and working together.
That's good.
Pretty amazing, actually.
Good. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we voted on the available minutes, so unless there's any further discussion, I will
Make a motion to adjourn.
motion made by Dave, second by Crystal, all in
I'm
favor.
out.
Whoop. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Brian.
At the beginning of the meeting, you asked me about the educational incentive in the clerical contract.
Oh, yes.
So the relevant paragraph is, upon completion of any degree or obtaining any certificate that would have been qualified for tuition reimbursement, and evidence of the employee having received any work-related certificate or degree, work-related, by the way, the town shall pay each employee so qualified an educational incentive equal to 5% of their annual base salary and weekly amounts as part of said base salary for an associate's degree or qualifying certificates. The town shall pay an educational incentive equal to 8% of their annual thing for a bachelor's degree or qualifying certificate. For the purpose of educational incentive, obtaining a certificate is equal to an associate's degree and will require the employee to attend 60 credit hours, et cetera, et cetera. And, but to receive this benefit, the employee must receive written approval from the Board of Selectmen prior to beginning the course of study. So there's a couple of caveats we've got to go back to the town clerk on, make sure that we've actually crossed the Ts and dotted the Is. But I don't see a provision for a master's degree that separates it from the bachelor's degree. So I'll just double check that.
But they were, it was going in at 8%.
Yeah.
So it's the same number, but
It's
it's not,
8%,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But
Well,
it
and it-
also has to be work-related.
Right.
So we'll just
And it
make sure
begs the
that-
question, does a clerk require a master's degree to do their
The
job?
problem is, this is where we come down to the spillover from contract to contract. This is Quinn-like.
Yeah.
And for those who've not been in government for a number of years, State of Massachusetts came out with an educational incentive program for police officers years ago called Quinn. And it gave an educational incentive for an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, or a master's degree. And it was incorporated into every police union contract across the state, for that matter. And the state used to fund it. And then the state decided not to fund it. But in every contract, it had to be, it had to be renegotiated, and of course, you don't ever seem to get back anything. So the town started funding the Quinn, now it's Quinn-like compensation. But then that carried over into other contracts, including this clerical contract. The question that you really have to decide is, in the job description, does the job require an advanced degree? And if the answer is no, we shouldn't be doing this. If the answer is yes, then I have no problem with it.
Agreed.
Sure.
But this is a problem where it's just blanket in a contract, and so we put it on the agenda for a future renegotiation. Fortunately, that contract's up next year, so.
That's good that you found that.
I just had to get it. Thank you, I apologize.
No, thank you. So is that, just before we leave, is that something you'll address with Sue, or should we address it? Okay.
I will actually- Yeah, I'll get you an answer for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
See the Bachelorette now tonight.
So were there any other things you wanted for the future meeting? Try to get to a place out
Snacks.
sooner,
I
so
think
we
just
can have
the- yeah.
chance, So I won't be running around.
I think if we can get them like the Thursday prior to the meeting, so we
Well,
can,
With the exception of the selectmen's budget, which is my fault, everybody else has got theirs in, so I
Oh,
can distribute the
yeah.
entire package to you, and then you've got it. The
Did we
only thing you
vote?
may
We
not
have to
get
approve- we
to
just
that
have to
point is,
adjourn the meeting.
we
Or-
didn't
we didn't
vote to adjourn the meeting.
Well, you get carte blanche. 'cause you're-
Not really, but,
Yeah, I mean, if you just want to send them all out, we can,
yeah, I'll just send the book.
Okay.
As long as you, it's a work in progress, as you notice, because I need to pull some things out of budgets and centralize them, and then make sure that when we go to town meeting, they're in the article properly, like we have enough money. I think the thing that kills me is this compensating balances for the retirees. I've got 2 in fire, I've got 1 in town hall, 1 in DPW, 1 in police, so we're talking like 150 grand.
Right. I mean, we gotta see that exposure somewhere.
right.
And the town people have to know that, in addition to the pay, this is how much is in the fire department, and it's in the assessor's office,
Right.
right? And it could, it's a little bomb that could blow up at any time.
100%.
I think it's a sizable enough number that I mentioned to the auditors that it should be, so liability.
I
Right.
think it is,
Yeah.
is it not?
Well, just remember, at the time this gets all pulled together and the number becomes very big, we're gonna need to, well, not we, you, will have to explain to the citizens on how these contracts work and why we're dishing out so much when people retire.
I'm going back to the Board of Selectmen that was sitting at the time that this contract was signed.
But it's just the whole
No.
longevity thing, and people don't understand, because at my job, I don't get longevity.
No one does anymore.
They buy
Nobody
that,
does.
Yeah.
And then 80% of my pay for the rest of my life with health
You get more than
insurance,
a-
so.
Okay,
Right.
Yeah.
let's not
That's another
confuse it. One, we don't go to, I don't wanna leave this out on the air. The retirement is always 80%.
Well,
One, it's employee funded 9% and 11% depending upon your paycheck. 2, we don't get social security, so I wanna make sure we just don't leave that unchallenged out there.
but you don't pay social security either.
We don't pay it either, but we do pay the 9% from the paycheck towards the retirement, or 11% depending upon the pay. So it is self-funding, so that's number one. And number 2, the only benefit that you could actually point to that I agree with you on is that I do have access to health insurance and town subsidized once you pass the 10-year mark.
Yeah.
So that is true. And that's a biggie.
That is big.
All right, well, on that note, we had a motion and second to adjourn, we just didn't vote, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.